from the University of Johannesburg. Prof, a very good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time and welcome.
Thanks.
Now, when we look at the pictures that have been coming out of Zimbabwe, unprecedented scenes, thousands, tens of thousands of people, as we have been reporting, on the streets of Harare and Bulawayo, all with one voice calling for the resignation of President Robert Mugabe. Could this be the situation that will dislodge the Zimbabwean leader?
Well, yes, this and the well-planned coup that isn't quite a coup. Some people are saying this has been planned for a year or more. And also in Pretoria, I understand, at the embassy in Pretoria. So it's a very interesting moment. You would see people on the streets, the armored personnel carriers right there with them and friendly with the army. That's not usually the way things go. So this has been very carefully planned. The war veterans, which are associated with Mnangagwa, the Mnangagwa faction, the Lacoste faction, I think everybody now knows what these terms mean, called them out yesterday. But obviously, you look at those signs and those posters, they're very professionally printed, right? You have the comedian Comrade Fatso and his social movement activists involved. So I guess civil society, social movements are deciding, well, we better link up with this. This is one step. This is a bit like 1980, we got rid of one oppressor, a bit like 1994 in South Africa. The enemy is very well known, and they're very happy to see that person go. But I don't think they're forgetting that the people who are getting rid of Mugabe were just a week ago, within that, and
within the same clique. Yeah,
that's right. Yes. So it's an internal coup, right, in ZANU-PF. Now, what's also going on while you have civil society and everybody out in the streets, and apparently, the war veterans yesterday were saying to businessmen, loan us a combi, pay for a combi, get people out. 33 buses from towns, from little towns all around. Each, so there's thousands and thousands. I haven't seen an estimate, but it certainly looks a lot, like a lot. So it's a fascinating moment. And simultaneously, as you were just announcing, the branches are all moving forward to impeach at a party level Robert Mugabe, using, I think, as well as they can, although it's not really clear if they're following all the constitutional rules within ZANU-PF to get rid of him. But more importantly, probably, is at the level of Parliament, where they're planning an impeachment process using the Constitution very carefully. Section 97 in the Constitution is quite clear on what they have to do. So I think by Tuesday you'll be seeing people in Parliament. If 50% of the people in Parliament say that we must go with the removal of the president, then the process goes forward. And everything is done neatly. You're not having to invite SADC. All the constitutional niceties are done with, and everybody can kind of forget that this was the military.
Well, we'll talk about SADC in a bit. I just want to talk about the constitutionality of this move, because as you were saying, that Parliament may now be coming in to impeach the president. But how legal would that be with the military in the streets? Well,
I guess you kind of forget about the military for a while. And this could have been done at any time, right? But what is it going to be important? Of course, ZANU-PF has a majority in Parliament. I forget the numbers right now, but many of the ZANU-PF people are detained, right? Because as this coup was unfolding, and we might as well not play around, it was a coup, and it is a coup, many of the G40, the group Generation 40, led by the people that you in the media all really, really love, Jonathan Moyo, who implemented all those acts that made it very difficult to be a journalist in the 2000s. He and his colleagues are detained, right? So that a lot of G40 MPs won't be there. So the MDC is linking up with the Lacoste faction to put this impeachment program through. And I guess to a certain extent, the illusion that this is just an inside party correction can be maintained. It's a unique coup.
But Prof, while we see all these protests within the streets of both the capital and the second biggest city, do you think that negotiations are still going on with the president behind closed doors? And I guess the question on everybody's lips now is, what exactly will it take for President Mugabe to step down?
Well, I guess Robert Mugabe has been holding out on this idea of constitutionality. That's been one of his cards. While he's playing this card, he's also negotiating for free passage out of the country for Grace and the children, maybe. I had an idea a couple of hours ago that perhaps he should go to Ethiopia, because when Mengistu...
But Mengistu is in Harare at the moment.
Yes,
is he?
And I think if he's still alive.
He's still there, yeah.
And there's a nice little restaurant below the Avondale Shopping Centre, just south, that was his restaurant. I'm not sure if it still is. So why not have Robert Mugabe and his family go to Ethiopia? Because they did that favor for Mengistu when he was, when was that? 1991. It
was in the 90s, in the early 90s.
But anyway, I'm sure they're still negotiating. And if, this idea of dignity is being maintained, why wouldn't he just go without being impeached, right? If Chiwenga and his allies have the data by Monday that the numbers in Parliament will be enough, if it's clear, maybe before it actually comes to the end of the road with ZANU-PF itself, with the impeachment, maybe there'd be more dignity if he resigned rather than going through this.
But there's also this question that many people are asking. What do you make of this situation that you have a president that is effectively under house arrest, but is also being allowed to proceed with his presidential duties, like what we saw yesterday at that graduation ceremony in Harare?
At the Open University, where Constantino Chiwenga's wife was getting an MA.
Indeed.
I think this might indicate that Zimbabweans love their education. PhDs are fluttering all over the place. Real PhDs, not just the one that Grace Mugabe has. Chiwenga himself has a PhD, believe it or not, from University of KwaZulu-Natal in Pietermaritzburg. You can download it. So that's part of it. But I think it's also just to give this impression to the world that we are cooperating on this process. Apparently at that meeting, this is what I hear from people who know people. Apparently at that meeting with the South Africans and the priest Makonaruni, which is facilitating these things, Mugabe said to Chiwenga, "You got me into this. I was ready to resign in 2008. Remember March 2008 when Shangarai actually won the election, and by bigger than it appears. And then there were the massive killings organized by Emmerson Mnangagwa in the runoff, right? And so Mugabe apparently was saying to Chiwenga, you got me into this. You forced me to stay. Because these military people are extremely rich. They have stakes in industry. They have millions. They have massive mansions. So, they're not doing this for democracy. They're doing this because Emmerson Mnangagwa was fired. And so it was an internal battle. Now, if civil society, he's got to go. Because if they impeach him, he's got to go. But if he resigns, that's much nicer. But civil society now, I think, it has a really, really interesting dilemma. Civil society kind of fell into the trap of being too closely allied with one party in the opposition, right? Then when the GNU came from 2009 to 2013, the Government of National Unity, civil society, which had been too tied up with the MDC, then had to find a new role and hasn't quite found it yet. It's really going to have to find that role when a much clearer military faction of the party has taken over, right?
Well, we have to end it there, but thank you so much, Prof, for your time, and I hope as things continue to happen in Zimbabwe, we will be chatting to you again. But thank you so much. That there was Professor David Moore from the University of Johannesburg.